Hello my beautiful friends from our half renovated apartment. I'm bringing you this video in these suboptimal conditions because firstly, why not? But secondly, it is interview time here in Australia and I've been asked an excellent high-odd question that I think will make a big difference to answer. So let's get into it. You guys probably know by now I'm all about focusing on the positives, but that doesn't mean that we ignore the negatives. This question came from my interview tips video. Check that video out if you've got interviews on the horizon. The question was, what are some red flags in a doctor? This is presumably meaning in the context of a medical interview. So here are some red flags in doctors that you should look out for and make sure you're not suggesting are a part of your character or conduct during your interview. The first red flag is a lack of insight. This might come out in you in the interview. If you suggest in some way that in a scenario you wouldn't ask for help or you don't know what your scope of practice is. As you progress through your medical career, most people are aiming to be a consultant, where you are ultimately responsible for the patient and you make the decisions for the team. Even the consultants are constantly asking for help and advice from other people. The destination is not knowing it all or your scope being boundless. As a doctor, whether you're junior or senior, you know your scope, you act within it, and you ask for help when you're out of bounds. Red flag number 2 is the special flower syndrome, when you think you're immune to the struggles of all of your colleagues and everyone else in the medical community around you. If you're presented with a scenario and you brush off the challenges within it with something like, oh, I'd be fine, oh, I'd just cope, oh, I'd just throw away simple, easy solutions. It looks like you've never had a challenge in your life and never developed the skills to work through a challenge. Resourcefulness, resilience, failure tolerance, perseverance. If you have genuinely lived so carefully and comfortably that you have never truly been challenged in your life, I suggest you think hard about where you would go for help, how you would call on resources and people around you if and when the going gets tough. Red flag number 3, intolerance of being wrong. Someone who is intolerant of being wrong, someone who is so uncomfortable with being wrong or getting something wrong, is going to be closed-minded. And a closed-minded person is not adaptable and they're not poised to learn and develop. You've got a lot of developing to do, and your senior consultants will tell you that over the decades past, they have constantly been learning and developing in their practice, despite being in their narrow subspecialty scope. So get comfortable with being wrong sometimes, get comfortable with making mistakes. I'm not saying get complacent, of course do your best, but anyone working in medicine has the insight to know that sometimes your best isn't quite good enough. Sometimes your best at the end of your 7th night shift in a row is not very good, and you will make mistakes simply because of your lack of experience. The cure to this is thinking with a growth mindset, which is a concept from Dweck. I'll put the link to her book below. Often throughout our schooling, we used to put in labels on ourselves as being successful or not successful, when in fact it was just our work that was successful or not successful, good or bad. We need to separate out what we do from who we are. I did a bad job, but I'm not a bad job. I made a mistake, but I'm not a mistake. The next red flag is not taking advice. Again, along this, there's so much to learn path. You need to be able to hear advice from people and actually take it on. Yes, you should always use a filter for this advice. I don't recommend taking advice from people who you don't respect. But when you get advice that doesn't quite sit right with you or you don't quite feel it at the time, don't throw it out straight away. Put it in the back of your mind and try and represent it to yourself over time. Have that openness, that consideration that you don't know what you don't know. Next red flag, being a lone ranger. It is great if you're a resourceful person and you can be by yourself and develop yourself by yourself. The hospital and training programs and even working as a consultant is not an easy gig to navigate. There's lots of risk zones where things can go very, very wrong. While you're going through this challenging training process and just working day by day in medicine by its nature. Again, it's helpful to suggest that you know you're not immune to this and you can be resourceful if you're challenged. Finally, and very importantly, the last red flag is a lack of compassion for others. As in the last point, it's not just you going through challenges in this process, in this culture, in this environment. It's all of the people around you, and these people are part of the functioning unit that keep the healthcare system working. If you look at this from the higher up hospital system perspective, it's in your employers, your training directors, your head of unit's interest that you are someone who looks out for other people. It's not uncommon to get challenging ethical scenarios in your interviews. Make sure you answer the questions practically, but also show a level of compassion for your colleagues and that you're looking for the greatest good in the scenario for everybody. That you're not somebody who would just leave someone behind. Show them that you're an asset in the context that is the team that keeps the healthcare system running. All right, my beautiful friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope this helps to warm up your brain and give you some focus for your interviews, and best of luck.